we're seeing a lot of, fighters want to interact, talk about this. They're not really shying away as we might have thought. I had like a couple of interviews fall through, but then I had a couple other interviews, and fighters were kind of eager to tell their side of the story. And just, from what I've gathered, UFC is just, is going to have to pause things for now. And I was so excited that UFC 249 was going to happen under circumstances. Also, all the media were, but was it the right move is what I'm wondering, because of the fact that the rate of infection can get, can happen anywhere. It could start anywhere, and obviously the fighters would be involved, and their families too, and also select media members. So potentially it could have been a bad PR event for the UFC had it gone the wrong way. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I think this way there's a 0% chance that any of the fighters are going to get infected. Whereas if they did the event, there's going to be some sort of a percentage, because it's not just the fighters. It's also the crew that puts the cage together. It's the broadcasting crew. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, over however many fighters that we're going to have on the card. It's everyone that sort of is involved in that. So yeah, I mean, I think for right now, because the rates are still getting pretty high from what we've seen as far as the death rates and the cases, I think it's a smart move now to just postpone things and see where things are in a few weeks. And, I just spoke to Charles Rosa this morning. He tells me, his fight's on May 2nd. He told me it's now been postponed till the 16th. So I think the UFC is still planning to do events, just not within this next month by the looks of it.
Yeah, and it's a really scary situation for fighters, who depend on that income. And that's kind of one of the reasons, I was a proponent for moving it forward, was that the fighters would get paid, obviously. But now we learned that they'll be taken care of by the UFC. And it's just they're in a holding pattern now. But UFC looks to be the first, sport to come back, which is exciting. They're working on a fight island. And, I'm not sure if that is even, the right move at this time, just because of the logistics. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, good for them. I mean, I know Dana White really wanted 249 to happen, and it's disappointing that it's getting postponed. But like I said, the fact that we're gonna have no risk of anyone getting COVID, I think is good. And also, I mean, the silver lining of this whole 249 being canceled is that we might still get to see Khabib and Ferguson, right? Like, yes. I mean, why rush that Justin Gaethje fight? Let's postpone it. Let's do Ferguson and Khabib in the fall. It's the fight everyone wants to see. 6 times a charm or whatever it is. So as far as that goes, that's fine. But to answer your first question about Fight Island, I mean, yeah, if they can make it as safe as they can, I'm all for it. But I do have my questions about, how safe is it really going to be? What type of medical staff are they going to have there? Who's going to be who's the commission going to be as far as, regulating the fights? So there's still a lot of questions there, but we'll see sort of what happens. I'll take the positive approach and say, it could be a good thing, but also we don't really know what's going to happen.
Nothing in place in terms of, post-fight medical care for the fighters. That was mentioned by Dana White. And so that's also going to be an issue, especially on the island. You'd have to, in building infrastructure, have to build like almost a hospital for the fighters before you would do anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see how it all looks. I mean, the whole idea in itself is crazy. Like, I've already seen the memes and everything coming out, but it's true. Like, fighters competing on an island is just something you don't see every day. They have had outdoor events before. Like, I remember Bodog had a card in Costa Rica. It was outdoors. Yeah. It looked pretty cool, but we'll see. A lot of the fighters I've spoken to seem like it's kind of a cool idea. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Do you feel like Tony Ferguson? Did you hear what he did? He's making weight for Friday. So just like the discipline of him, I have to commend him on that and his mindset. What do you think about that when you heard that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's it's good that he's still treating this like as if it was going to happen and trying to make the weight and everything. And look, I mean, that's all he can really do at this point. He can't do anything else. He can't leave the country. He can't go anywhere. He can't fight anyone. So good on him for setting this goal and setting a good example for other fighters as well. Just saying like, hey, look, like, it doesn't matter. I'm always going to be in shape. So good on him for doing that.
He's always ready to compete, which is exciting. And I feel like that fight is going to happen. If not this year, next year. And Khabib is obviously he's going to look to come back in September. That would be the soonest he would come back, from what I heard from his recent conversations. But I'm excited. That's going to be the next big fight. Hopefully, UFC puts on.
Yeah, let's hope it does end up taking place. I mean, we got to see this fight. This is I've never in my life seen so many fight bookings for one mega fight like this one is. And the other thing you got to remember, Sean, is like there's a lot on the line for both of these guys. Like both of them have 12 fight win streaks in the UFC. Right. I mean, it's just so rare to see two fighters like this go head to head. So yeah, they got to try and make it happen. I like the Gaethje fight. I think it's exciting, but just with what Tony's done in his career, he's got to fight Khabib at this point.
I agree. And with the proper preparation too, we're going to see a higher
quality.
And so that's what we're hoping the fighters can do. Also, we heard Gordy Garbrandt talking about moving to the flyweight division. What were your thoughts on that? And obviously, I don't want to say he's judging, dodging anyone at the bantamweight division. But how do you feel about that?
Oh, I think he's got to come back and win a fight at bantamweight first. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's kind of crazy for him to talk to go down. I mean, look, part of this could just be him trying to put his name in the headlines. And, to be honest, going down to flyweight right now seems like a good idea for a lot of fighters because the division's wide open. But I don't know, like Garbrandt's had chin issues. He's been knocked out in a couple fights, the last couple ones. Like, I wonder him moving down, is that going to make his chin even worse? Like, and he's got a tough fight anyways, or he had a tough fight against a Sun Sao anyhow. So I'd like to see him come back and actually win a fight and then talk about moving down, because I just don't see it being a good move for him, despite how wide open flyweight is. I just don't think it's for his health and everything else. I don't know if he can safely make that weight. So I think for him, he should come back, win a fight, and then start looking at options like that.
And then with Jon Jones, the AWI he had, most think that he's going to continue down this path. What do you feel about it?
It's unfortunate. I hate seeing any sort of negative press with Jon Jones, but I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, he's his own worst enemy. He's got to figure out what it is. He's got to reevaluate who's around him, and he's got to look at what some of the issues are, and he's got to ultimately change himself as far as that goes. And I think, unfortunately, until he gets serious about this, and when I mean serious, like, take some extensive time off fighting and really go to a proper rehab program, I think, unfortunately, we're going to probably see something like this again. And to me, it was a little bit disappointing to see him get sort of a slap on the wrist for this. I mean, he's had instances like this before. Like, it's not even the fact, like, people, a lot of people argue like, oh, I don't care what Jon Jones does outside the cage and all that. And like, I understand that to a certain degree. Like, if a fighter's caught, doing drugs or whatever, like, if you were in the comfort of your own home and you're doing drugs, fair enough. I don't care. I mean, you should be a good role model, but I don't care about that stuff. But my issue is the DUI, like him driving under the influence. Like, you could kill someone. And what if he had killed someone? That would have ruined his career. So I think he's really got to be careful and just, it's unfortunate, because I think Jon Jones is one of the best ever in our sport, but it's really tough right now to say that with the fact that he keeps getting into his own way outside the cage and the PED accusations and everything else. I mean, he hasn't been easy on himself.
As the time passed, all's forgiven. He comes back, he has a big win, and then the cycle just restarts again. So hopefully they put an end to that once and for all. Hopefully Jon Jones can figure out, what he needs to do in his life to progress, because we've got some exciting fights for Jones at the 205-pound division coming up.
Yes, no, we certainly do, and we'll see what happens. And I see him and Israel Adesanya still going back and forth, but there's a lot of options right now for Jones at 205. Reyes rematch potentially, maybe Thiago Santos rematch. You got Jan Blachowicz waiting in the wings. You've got this fight, which hopefully will end up happening at some point between Anthony Smith and Glover Teixeira. So a lot of things happening right now at 205.
UFC 250, so we're skipping over UFC 249. That would technically be the next pay-per-view, and we don't really have any plans in place except that fact that Dominic Cruz is slotted to take on Henry Cejudo. So with that fight announced, just talk about that. Are you excited for that fight?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of outrage, obviously, because Cruz hasn't won a fight in a long time. His last fight was the title loss to Cody Garbrandt. So there's a school of thought being like, hold on a second, why is Cruz stepping in here? And I understand it because he was a former champion, and obviously he's a pretty big name. But no, I think it kind of is a slap in the face to guys like Aljamain Sterling or Corey Sandhagen. Petr Yan, I can understand them not putting him in that title spot against Cejudo because of the fact that he's already scheduled to fight Marlon Moraes. Like, why would you break up a fight like that? You'd have to find an opponent for Moraes. So it'd be a little bit tricky there. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as the style fight, I have no idea what we're going to expect with Dominic Cruz, because 4 years is a very long time to not compete, and we'll see. But I mean, yeah, from a style perspective, it's an interesting fight, but not really deserving, if you ask me.
And then the fact that Dana White said he's going to probably bring UFC back to Tachi Palace. That's a small venue. So any idea how they would sell tickets for that?
I don't know. I think they just maybe make it like a really fun like fight night card and maybe stack the deck or something along those lines. But I think it was more of like a courtesy to them because of all the hoops they were willing to go through just to have 249 happen. So it was kind of like he wanted to sort of pay back to them. And I think that's good. I mean, it's good to see local markets getting treatment like that. So I see that nothing is a positive.
Yeah, same here. And then in terms of media, like, do they have a criteria for selecting media for these events?
I don't think there's going to be any media at the events. As far as I've heard, no, because the whole idea was they were going to do an empty arena, right?
Right.
So I don't like. I've heard rumblings that they might have a few media, but like I don't think you're going to see like Fighting and Junkie and all the regular outlets there. Right. I think they're going to restrict them. So I don't know. Like that would just be my guess, because the less people you have in that arena, the less risk there is for COVID, right? So
yeah. I was thinking they could be in like a press box or something like that. and be totally isolated from the fighters.
You could, but then what's kind of the point of being there? Like, unless they could interview the fighters, like I don't even know how that would work. They'd have to be like 6 feet back or something. It'd be a little bit awkward. I don't know how they do that. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, it just we're seeing everything change, as we move forward. And for the local events and regional MMA, I think that's what's being most affected by this, that they can't throw on events as well.
Yep.
So that's really sad as well. So I think that's all I have today, James. If you have anything, let me know. But we appreciate you being on the show.
Hey, well, I always enjoy coming on, Sean. I was just thinking actually the other day, I mean, it hasn't been a year yet, but I remember us going to that arcade bar in Chicago last June for 238. One of my favorite memories. That arcade bar is awesome. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that was Replay. There you go. I always tell people that was one of my favorite arcade bars there or whatever. But I was actually going to throw this back to you. How are you holding up with everything that's going on right now? Because I know you have a day job, and obviously you live in the city, so it's kind of tough to, I'm sure, get around with everything that's going on. So I thought I'd check in on you, kind of turn the tables here.
Sure. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Well, actually, today I am going back to work. We have an essential job, but we were off 3 weeks. We had a couple of cases at our job.
Oh, wow.
So they elected us to give us either 3 weeks off, or we would work. We could work, continue to work, and we get a bonus, right?
Okay.
But then a couple of cases came through that were isolated, and about 2 weeks ago, so no hourly employees have been there in 2 weeks. So today's the first day we're back, and of course they're taking precautions. They're going to have temperature checks. They're going to, isolate people while they're working. We're all going to be wearing masks, so it's going to be a different world. So thanks for checking up on me.
I'm glad to hear you're still working, because I know it can be difficult sometimes. And I'm lucky because where I live here, like I live in a house, like I have a backyard, I have lots of room to roam around, and I can only imagine living in the city, and it can be a bit tougher. So I'm just glad to hear that you're still working, and that's I haven't heard that for a lot of people, if they had to go back to work or not. So that's good. You're still. Yeah. So another quick question, just, and then I got you here. I hate to turn the tables here, but how do you feel about going back to work, knowing that, there's still people, potentially infected?
I feel like, I feel excited because, we're finally getting back to work. It's been really boring. Being at home and doing podcasts has been fun and stuff, occupied the time. But I'm excited because the fact that I think they have a lot of precautions, with the temperature checks and stuff like that. They're going to have a lot of people isolated. They're going to require masks. Even when we're eating lunch, we can't be around each other. There's no cafeteria. So I feel like they're taking the necessary precautions. And, we are essential business. We are power supply for many utilities, including Canada and North America and even all over the world. So I believe that it'll be safe for now, but it's good to, finally get back to work. So.
Well, that's great. I'm sure on behalf of a lot of people, thank you for your service, because I know for a lot, I just work at home. I mean, I don't have to worry about much, but you're actually doing the real work out there. So good on you. And just always appreciate you having me on, man. Your listeners can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. The YouTube channel, though, is where you can find all of my content, youtube.com/ScoreMMA. We're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers by mid-May. We're at almost 18,000 now, so really want to get those numbers up over the next month and a bit. And man, thank you so much for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully we can get back into Chicago. It is Bellator MMA. Supposedly scheduled this year. UFC will be scheduled down the road. So hopefully we can do more of this stuff in person too.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, man.
Positive. All right, take care.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
You too. Bye.